This is a general overview of financial arrangements for students coming from Scotland and the European Union. The information in this presentation is not relevant to those coming from England, Wales and Northern Ireland. They should look at the other talk. This is a general overview of costs you can expect to incur whilst at university. We will go through them one by one. Accommodation will be the greatest of your costs. More information can be viewed at the accommodation presentation on the Virtual Open Day website. Your travel costs will very much depend on where you come from and if you plan to return home as much or as little as possible. It will also depend on where you live during term time and what mode of transport you use. Remember, walking costs nothing. It's certainly worth thinking about budgeting for a certain amount of travel per year though. In terms of accommodation, the university offers catered accommodation where there are 2 meals offered a day, or self-catered options where students are expected to cater for themselves. As you can see here, the cost of accommodation varies drastically, from £65 per week for self-catered options, or from £129.56 per week for catered options. Both options include bills, i.e. gas, electricity and broadband internet access. As you can see here, it's a 38-week lease. We have estimated the amount of food costs that are likely for students as well, so allowing £30 extra per week for self-catered students and £15 per week for those in catered accommodation. Generally, students will go into private accommodation from second year onwards once they have made friends. These can range anything from about £300 per month. Obviously, utility bills, food, etc. would be in addition to this. This is a figure, of course, which is generally shared between flatmates, sharing with 2 or 3 other people. There will always be a lot of other things you will need to pay for during your time as a student, whichever university you go for. The costs listed are only a guide. The costs very much depend on the student and their interest, but it will give you an idea of the possible costs they may incur over and above accommodation costs. As mentioned earlier, the travel costs will depend on the mode of transport used and how often the student plans to go home. Books are an important part of student life, and you will be given a reading list for each of your courses. There will be some which you should buy, but some you will be able to borrow from the library or buy from our second-hand bookshop, which is on campus. There are also good deals on books through eBay and Amazon. You will have to pay for photocopying and printing of essays and lecture notes, so it's worth budgeting for that too. Clothes are obviously a necessity, but costs will vary greatly depending on where you shop, i.e. Primark or Prada. The telephone cost is obviously just an estimate, and again very much depend on the use of the phone and what kind of deal you have with your phone company. You will have to consider clubs and society membership costs and whether you need to hire equipment or pay for extras. Costs can soon mount up if you start going out regularly. Aberdeen is a student-orientated city, so there are often good deals for students on the go, so keep a lookout for them. It's always a good idea to have some money which isn't budgeted for, as there will always be some costs which just crop up. Overall, we suggest around £2,200 per year to meet all of these costs. One cost that hasn't been mentioned is food, but it's obviously particularly important. Again, it very much depends if you're in catered accommodation, self-catered or private accommodation. The Student Awards Agency for Scotland is part of the Scottish Executive, and it administers all loans for Scottish domiciled students. We would recommend that you look at their web pages, as this can be a very complex area. These are the fees that are set for institutions in the UK. Those outside Scotland will be charging £3,375 per year in 2011. From 2012, it is likely to go between £6,000 to £9,000. Fees in Scotland, however, are currently still at the same levels as 2009, which is £1,820 per year for most courses and £2,895 for medicine. It is unlikely that this will change until 2013. However, Scotland is going to the polls in May 2011, and with a new government this may well change. If a student is ordinarily resident in Scotland on or before the 1st of August, they are eligible for help from SAS. Also, students living in the European Union may be eligible for their fees being paid by the Student Awards Agency for Scotland. This is some of the financial support that Student Awards Agency for Scotland offers, in addition to paying tuition fees. Student loans are pretty much a reality for students these days, although they don't need to take out the maximum amount. The maximum is currently £5,417, with the minimum being £915. The £915 is non-income assessed. When filling out the form for the tuition fees, it is the same form for student loan. These figures are all based on the 2011-2012 academic year. The student loan is based on the parents' income, not the students'. There is also a young student's bursary which does not need to be paid back and replaces part of the loan. The maximum you can get in young student's bursary is £2,640. Students are not entitled to this if parental income is above £34,195. SAS forms are available to fill in online from the beginning of April. Here are some examples of additional support on offer. Firstly, hardship funds. These are housed within the university and are a real emergency, anything up to £500. These are non-repayable. Student Awards Agency also offers dependent grants, which are means tested, and loan parent grants, again means tested. The Disabled Students Allowance is not means tested, and the main difference for the year 2011 is the removal of the travel grant. Student Awards Agency will no longer be issuing travel expenses to students. In terms of student funding, if your children continue in full-time education after leaving school, you are officially regarded as having financial responsibility for them until they reach the age of 25. It's important to make sure that if there are any scholarships that you will be eligible for. At the university, we have a number of scholarships on offer based on academic merit as well as financial need, as well as one specific to sport and music. An important website to note is www.abdn.ac.uk/funding. This is the new database of all scholarships and bursaries that are available at the University of Aberdeen. The deadline is the 25th of April each year for the scholarships, so worthwhile checking out sooner rather than later. We understand that most of our students will need to work while studying, and the Students' Association runs a scheme called JobLink, which lists jobs that are available locally. The university suggests that you should only work 15 hours per week in your part-time job, as it is more likely to affect your academic study if you work longer hours. If you're planning coming to university, it's a good idea to start saving now. Most of our students use their long summer break to get a full-time job and save up money for the coming year. Students can always take out student overdrafts, and it is worth shopping around for the best deals with banks. Many have good introductory offers for new students, but again, these need to be paid back, and the student loan company tend to have better rates. So do research the options that's best for you. Thank you for listening.